It's Thursday, June 11th, 2026, and it's time for The Swamp, where I cover the daily happenings inside our federal machine. And if you enjoyed the video, please give a quick like and subscribe and click on the notification bell, and I'll keep you up to date on everything in The Swamp from Monday through Friday. Every article in this video is linked below in the description, and the highlight segments from tonight's episode will be dropping tomorrow morning starting at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. We're going to kick things off with Rapid Response 47, a direct quote from the President of the United States. We just made a great settlement of the war with Iran, and we're going to be subject to finalization of documents, which should get done over the next few days. We'll probably have a signing, maybe in Europe, and it's a great thing. So let's see if it'll finally happen this time, and let's take a look and see what he has to say.
We just made a great settlement of the war with Iran, and we're going to be subject to finalization of documents, which should get done over the next few days.
Hopefully.
Probably have a signing maybe in Europe, and it's a
maybe.
good thing. Stock market's up 1,000 points.
Ooh.
That means they like the deal. See, that means they like, if the market goes down, that means they don't like the deal. But it's been up, oil's dropped. Oil will start coming down to, I think, even lower than it was before. I said I was in Iowa. It was $1.85 a gallon. I don't know if I'm going to get there, but we're going to get pretty close. It's going to come down, and when oil comes down, everything else comes down.
$1.85? That'd be the day.
And most importantly, we have a deal that Iran will never have a nuclear weapon, which was the whole purpose of what we had to go through to get this. So it was a big, very big thing. But we have a signing soon, and the documents are in pretty final shape.
So let's hope so.
We'll see. Very good.
We'll see.
Should be done. That should be done pretty quickly. They want it every bit as much as everybody else wants it. And I think a lot of good relationships can ensue from this. I just spoke with the leaders of many of the countries that were mentioned in the release. I just spoke to Bibi. I spoke to the head of great heads of nations, Qatar, UAE, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Kuwait, and others. And we're going to be talking to Turkey. President Erdogan.
Can't forget Turkey.
And it's really a wonderful thing. With a lot of spirit. Pakistan was fantastic. The Prime Minister and the, I call him the general. He's the general. He's a great general. He's so great that he's actually a field marshal, a step above. And they're all very happy. The whole Middle East is happy. And long beyond the Middle East, the Strait will open as soon as we have it signed.
Well, God willing, if God's listening, hopefully he will allow that to happen, and we'll get this thing wrapped up, signed, done deal, Strait of Hormuz back open, no more threats. Everything's just going to become just wonderful and great, happy. World peace finally achieved. Not sure if it's exactly going to play out that way. I don't know, man. This isn't the first time we've heard of it, but this just came out 5 hours ago, just as of this recording, while President Trump was signing a new proclamation opening up fishing in the Pacific Ocean, if I'm not mistaken, after Biden had restricted it heavily. So President Trump is undoing that in the Oval Office, which we'll get to that in just a moment. But first, this is from last night. Now, let me just confirm, at least do my best effort to confirm with the best resource that I have. Oh, nope, never mind. Didn't even answer it. So let me just take a quick look. Now, before I play the video, I just want to give a quick disclaimer posted from Grok. Context of this video: the U.S. did conduct strikes on Iranian targets around this period, which include air defenses, radar, surveillance sites near the Strait of Hormuz and areas around Tehran with reported explosions. However, official reports focus on military infrastructure and not a specific IRGC command and control that was hit, matching this exact visual, which the caption of this video says, "We just hit the IRGC command and control, get some." So take this with a big grain of salt. So we'll just take a look at this video. May not be legitimate. It's definitely been slowed down. That's why the audio sounds all weird, at least in my opinion. I think that's what was happening there. But yeah, it also mentions that that footage from cities around the Middle East is frequently recycled. So this could have been from a week ago. It could have been a completely different country. It could have been from 5 years ago, for all we know. Although that was the one and only video when I was searching for videos late last night. That was the one that I came across because I was trying to see if I could find any footage of any of the strikes that have been happening. I came across this. It got a lot of likes, 37,000, got almost 600,000 views. So I thought, maybe there's something to it. So I asked Grok, and it never responded to me, as Grok doesn't always respond whenever you ask it straight questions. But that's all right. Anyway, we'll just move on to the next thing. From Rapid Response 47, President Trump's Truth Social. Based on the fact that discussions with the Islamic Republic of Iran have been brought to the highest level of Iranian leadership and approved, I have, as President of the United States of America, canceled the scheduled strikes and bombings against Iran this evening, as in June 11th this evening. Discussions and final points have been, in both concept and great detail, approved by all parties involved, including the United States and Israel and Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Turkey, Pakistan, Bahrain, Kuwait, Jordan, Egypt, and other countries. The naval blockade will remain in full force and in effect until this transition is finalized. Time and place of the signing to be announced shortly. President Donald J. Trump, United States of America. And while I'm on the subject, I'll have a look over on Rapid Response to see, because he did say shortly, and that was posted a couple hours ago. So maybe there was something posted. No, so this was 2 hours ago. Welcome to America. That's obviously not going to be related. And 4 hours ago, socialist running. So it doesn't appear. Yeah, so that was during the same meeting or his event at the Oval Office. So it doesn't look like there was any movement on that just yet. The exact time and place being finalized. So I'll stay on top of it. I'm sure I'll be talking about that tomorrow night, because I imagine that they will be announcing if there is going to be a signing. I'm sure we'll be finding out sometime between now and tomorrow. And moving on to U.S. Central Command, the Strait of Hormuz remains open for transit. Safe pathways are established for commercial vessels transiting the Strait of Hormuz. The pathways are available to all vessels not violating the blockade against Iran. Hundreds of ships have transited in the last 2 months, and U.S. forces are postured to defend against Iranian aggression. Iran does not control the Strait of Hormuz. Of course, that's what they're telling everybody. No, we've got all the control of the Strait of Hormuz. But no, according to the U.S. military, which I'll take their word for it, it's actually the United States that controls the Strait of Hormuz. And speaking of which, just happened, let's see, when was that? About 12 hours ago? Or no. Okay, no, it was still less than 24 hours ago, but on 11 o'clock p.m. Eastern time just last night, actually right when I was wrapping up the swamp last night and actually uploading it in real time, this happened. U.S. forces disable a third oil tanker violating the blockade in the Gulf of Oman. That is the third this week. So this is now the third one that I'm talking about, which happened just this week alone. U.S. forces disabled an oil tanker in the Gulf of Oman at 11:20 p.m. Eastern on June 10th after the vessel violated the blockade against Iran by attempting to transport Iranian oil, marking the third commercial ship disabled by American forces this week. U.S. Central Command, or CENTCOM, acted against Guinea-Bissau, flagged MT Jalveer as it attempted to transport oil from Iran through the Gulf of Oman. A U.S. aircraft fired 2 Hellfire missiles into the ship's engine room after the crew repeatedly failed to comply with directions from U.S. forces. Earlier this week, U.S. aircraft disabled Palau-flagged vessels MT Marivex and MT Setabello on Monday and Tuesday, respectively. Marivex violated the blockade by attempting to sail to an Iranian port, and Setabello attempted to transport Iranian oil. CENTCOM forces have disabled nine altogether non-compliant vessels, redirected 135 ships that did comply, and allowed 42 vessels supporting humanitarian aid to pass since initiating the blockade back on April the 13th. The blockade is being enforced impartially against vessels of all nations entering or departing Iranian ports and coastal areas, including all Iranian ports on the Arabian Gulf and in the Gulf of Oman. So here's the footage that they're sharing of the engine room being struck. There you go, right there, bullseye. And again, for the third time, hopefully there was nobody in the engine room. You know, they're just down there doing their jobs. Probably have no clue what's going on. They're just down there just following orders. And all of a sudden, bam. So, I honestly have no idea. I'm just hoping and pray that nobody was down in there. Because, they otherwise don't really have all that much dog in the fight. They're just there just getting paid, just trying to keep the engines running. But So that happened. Hopefully that's going to be the last one that happens. I don't know why they keep disobeying orders. And there was one instance, it wasn't one of the ships from this week, but it was recent. It was about a week, maybe 2 weeks ago, when we did the exact same thing. We fired a missile at their engine room and disabled the ship. We had been giving them commands for something like 22 hours nonstop, and they wouldn't stop their ship. They just kept moving and moving and moving just toward Iran, toward a port in Iran. And eventually, I guess it got, because it was, I believe it was still out in open sea. It wasn't in the Strait of Hormuz or the Gulf of Oman just yet. It was on its way there, clearly going to Iran, and our U.S. forces were giving them commands for hours and hours and hours and hours, and it never stopped. And so then eventually we're like, all right, fuck it, hit the engine room, and we did, and we disabled the oil tanker, and it never made it to Iran. All right, so let's get back to President Trump. And this is apparently, okay, so this is going to be a quote from Howard Lutnick. 500,000 square miles were closed to American fishermen. If you had an American flag, you weren't allowed there, but of course, everybody else was. That resulted in us, instead of having exports, because we have great fishing opportunity, we were an importer. We became an importer of seafood. How crazy is that? The president is finally changing that. This is a massive win for our fishermen, massive win for our waterfront community.
This action, 500,000 square miles were closed to American fishermen. You couldn't go and fish 500,000 square miles. I mean, just think of how big that is. And
but think about the climate change.
Flag, you weren't allowed
so retarded,
there. But of course, everybody else went. So they went in our waters. These are our waters. Right? And so what did that result in?
Mexico,
that resulted
Canada,
in us, instead
China.
of having seafood exports, because we have great fishing opportunity, we were an importer. We became an importer of seafood. How crazy is that? So the president is finally changing that. This is a massive win for our fishermen, massive win for our waterfront communities who process it, all these processors. And in the end, we are going to eat fish caught by us. What a shock. Eating fish caught by us in our waters. So this is just common sense, smart. We already have the best conservation rules in the world. And this was one on top of another on top of another. So thank God from the fisherman's perspective, and I get these calls all the time, that President Donald Trump is in this office because he's finally letting our great fishermen and fisherwomen get out there and catch fish and stop importing fish. Let's eat fish caught by Americans.
Thank you.
All right, well, I love seafood just like many other people, and if it brings down prices, that's okay with me because seafood's crazy expensive right now. And let's see, I think I might actually have this in another, or did I already do this one? It's my honor to be taking this action to lower seafood costs. Nope, not yet. And generate millions and millions of dollars in new business for our really great fishermen by restoring commercial access to 3 areas of the Western Pacific Ocean.
So it's my honor to be taking this action to lower seafood costs and generate millions and millions of dollars in new business for our great, really great fishermen, great people.
The best.
By restoring commercial access to 3 areas of the Western Pacific Ocean. It's a large amount of space we're talking about that they were restricted. Other countries would use it, but our country couldn't use it. You ever hear anything so stupid?
Beyond stupid. Absolutely ridiculous. But that's Democrats for you, making things unnecessarily, ridiculously difficult and stupid. Oh, but they blame Trump and they blame everybody, Republicans, for jacking up the cost for everything. I have a feeling that the reason why we're paying so much for seafood right now may have something to do with this, among other things. And from RNC Election Integrity, you heard the president. We have to get the Save America Act passed. President Trump's still talking about it.
Our country, we have to get, by the way, the Save America Act has to get passed by the Senate. House has passed it 3 times.
Yeah, immediately. That would certainly make the midterms a whole lot more simple and a lot more favorable, not just for Republicans, but for all voters in America, because it would secure our elections almost ironclad. It would make sure that everybody who's voting has legit voter ID and actually has to make sure that they are able to vote and that they only vote once. They don't have duplicate votes out there getting mailed to this address and that address and all their other past addresses. All right, anyway. And okay, so we did that one. So I knew I had that on the list somewhere. Fox News, you have done more for this nation in the seafood space than any other president before you in my lifetime. So somebody speaking to President Trump, a fisherman.
I just want to say, as for you, this is a crew member's cap. You can take that, and you're one of us now. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You've done more for this nation in the fishing space. We're farmers of the sea. We produce this great healthy protein. I'm from North Carolina, but we support you 100%. You've done more for this nation in the seafood space than any president before you in my lifetime. Thank you, sir.
Well, amen.
I just want to say,
As long, like I said, as long as we get our fishing prices down, I'm all for it. Okay, commentary. Donald J. Trump posts from, I don't know, ... I guess I'll figure it out. From, I guess, Trump. It's kind of frustrating when they, okay, here it is, from True Social. There it is. All right, yeah, down here. Commentary. Donald J. Trump posts from True Social. I don't come across this account very often. Justin, all right, yeah, so here we go. Justin, Trump just unloaded on Ilhan Omar. And Trump wants her deported for fraud and corruption. Of course. I mean, he's been saying this. A lot of people have been saying this for a long time. She came from Somalia, married her brother, and now tries to lecture us on the Constitution. Trump is done with it. Send Omar back. Now, just full disclosure, there's not 100% guaranteed proof that she did indeed marry her brother or the dude that she married. I think it was like back in like 2003 or 6 or something that she allegedly met while she was going to university in Minnesota. They got married so he could secure his U.S. citizenship or whatever. But obviously, we all know the big rumor is that it was indeed her brother that she ended up marrying. And I guess they're still investigating that. Last I heard, the feds are still looking into that.
Somalia. All these people came in from Somalia. They ripped off our system. You have the woman who married her brother. She came in and married her brother. Isn't that wonderful? And then she talks about the Constitution of the United States. She comes from Somalia. They don't have constitutions in Somalia. They don't have police. They don't have it. All they have is people that run around shooting each other. And then she comes and tells us how to run our country. I don't like it. These people don't like it.
She hates our country.
I think I can speak for you.
It's like all the other Democrats.
She comes in, Ilhan Omar. She comes in, she tells us how to run the United States of America. And she comes from a place without anything, probably among the worst countries in the world. And she says, the Constitution of the United States protects me. She shouldn't be protected. She honestly, she should be thrown out of the country. She's corrupt. And most of the people that came in are corrupt, and the whole voting system is corrupt in Minnesota. I won Minnesota 3 times, easily. I won almost every county, but they didn't give it to me.
You won
it's a corrupt
bigly.
System, very corrupt state. The governor is terrible. The attorney general is terrible. They're all very corrupt people. Yeah.
I don't think any Republican has won Minnesota in decades. I don't think even Richard Nixon, not even Ronald Reagan. I don't even think Reagan even won Minnesota. It's been a very long time. So I guess somebody, including Trump, can maybe argue that, well, the Minnesota election system's been corrupt going back that far, maybe even farther than that. Who knows? So, all right. And with regard to Ilhan Omar, one last remark I would make. This could really quite easily be solved if the feds just contact Ilhan Omar's parents, assuming that they're still alive, and also her former husband's parents, and figure it out if they're the same ones or not. I mean, I guess it'd be that simple. All right, from the White House, President Trump signs a proclamation June 11th, 2026. So this is the entirety of the event that happened in the Oval Office today. It's an hour long, so I'm not going to watch the entire hour. So that's why I'm going to repost it. There's a direct link below to my profile in the description, or you can go to @WhiteHouse. It'll be at the White House's profile. They posted it at 3:30 p.m. exactly today, June 11th. So you can go over there and have a look at the entire thing if you so choose. And from Senator Katie Boyd Britt, outstanding pick, President Trump. Looking forward to supporting this nomination and appreciate the president's commitment to our national security. So it looks like he decided to go with somebody else for the head of the Director of National Intelligence, the DNI. I'm pleased to announce the nomination of the very highly respected Jay Clayton, former chairman of the Securities and Exchange Commission, the former head of Sullivan and Cromwell, one of the most prominent and successful law firms anywhere in the world, and the current United States Attorney for the Southern District of New York, to be the next Director of National Intelligence, and importantly, to serve in my cabinet. Few people anywhere in the legal community are respected at the level of Jay. I encourage the United States Senate to confirm Jay as soon as possible. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. And not sure how Democrats are going to take this one. I haven't really seen any pushback from them just yet, although I'm sure that'll probably be coming out any minute now. And from Tom Cotton, and I think he sits on the Senate Intelligence Committee. At least he suggests that he does in this post. Jay Clayton is an excellent choice by President Trump for Director of National Intelligence in his service to the people of New York. Mr. Clayton has deep experience combating a wide range of national security threats, because that's with Trump's last pick. That was the beef that Democrats had with his pick, was, oh, he doesn't have any national intelligence experience at all. The Senate Intelligence Committee will quickly process his nomination. So there you have it. Sounds like that may end up being a done deal, but we'll have to see. And from the White House, the United States, or here, let me just read it here. President Trump's Truth Social, the United States of America cannot live with the shackles of birthright citizenship. It is not economically or otherwise sustainable, and no other country in the world of consequence does it. President Donald J. Trump. And look who it is, Rand Paul, coming in with support on this. I have proposed a constitutional amendment to end birthright citizenship. Cases like this are not what the 14th Amendment was intended for. And he's replying to the Department of State. Under President Trump, the State Department is defending the integrity of U.S. citizenship by ending illegal birth tourism schemes. No foreigner is permitted to obtain a visitor visa for the primary purpose of acquiring U.S. citizenship for a child by giving birth in the U.S. And I went into more detail on this yesterday, I think it was. Maybe it was the day before yesterday, but this week I covered a lot more of this on right here on The Swamp this week. And it goes on to say a U.S. embassy in West Africa uncovered a sophisticated birth tourism network of more than 100 foreign nationals using fraudulent documents and visa fixers to get themselves visas in order to get U.S. citizenship for their children. And it goes on quite a ways. Like I said, I went over all of this, like these exact posts. I covered all of this, which obviously would have been last night. So you could check out yesterday's episode if you want to see me go through all of these. And we will press on to the next. And a constitutional amendment, I would be shocked if that even happens. Even if any other constitutional amendment gets added, probably even in my lifetime, with as hyper polarized as we are, if the parties continue to be more or less 50-50 divided by numbers in Congress, I don't think we're ever going to get another constitutional amendment until one way or another that just the percentages start to lean further toward one side, because you need 2/3 in the House and Senate and the president to sign off on a constitutional amendment. But yeah, I would say that would be a very important one to be added. And let's head on to the next. Fear Buck. The stage for the UFC event at the White House has been completed. Let's have a look at this.
No to jeszcze zrób tam.
Sorry for the ear R word. My apologies. I didn't realize the sound was up that loud, so my apologies. I fixed the volume for the next video. That's crazy that it's just sitting right there on the White House lawn. Just right there. And it looks huge. Looks like it's towering way up into the sky. So, and the big fight's happening this weekend. Is it Saturday night? I think it's Saturday night. I believe it is. Oh, well, here we go. Sunday. Sorry, my bad. Not Saturday. It's going to be live on Sunday. This Sunday, June 14th at 8 p.m. Eastern. History in the making. This is from the UFC's official account. And it's going to be on Paramount Plus, which I don't have. So apparently I'm not going to be watching the UFC fight because I don't subscribe to any of these a la carte streaming services. UFC Freedom 250 presented by Crypto.com in Ram Trucks. And here is a time lapse of the whole thing going up. Wow, man, they make it look so easy. Just pops right up. There it is. Just went from nothing to everything just in a matter of days. And from Democrat Senator Macy Hirano, she says 1 in 3 Americans struggle to afford their electricity bills. I'm sure the vast majority of them are in blue states, Democrat states, of course. And this is how this regime is spending your taxpayer money, which this is not taxpayer funded. The most out of touch regime in history, which she got brutally ratioed. She got 204 likes, so good for her. But she got over 1,000 comments, so she got ratioed like by a factor of at least 5 to 1. And I can only imagine what these comments are saying. I mean, I'll proceed with some caution. You have no problem spending other people's money for the BS you guys did during Obama and Biden. Well, they should all move out of blue states. Yeah, that's exactly what my thoughts are. You are the one out of touch. Do some homework before you say something so stupid. The UFC is covering all the expenses, which I'm sure they probably are. Because, you know, like all these people tuning in, you know the UFC is going to get their money back. They're going to profit like crazy off of this fight, I would imagine. And taxpayers aren't funding this, you moron. Cry harder. Where was your fake rage when Biden had a tranny show at the White House on Easter? Half-naked men exposing their fake breasts for children. You are not a serious person. I call that winning. Go cry wolf somewhere else, you incompetent excuse for a senator. All right, well, those are all pretty G-rated for the most part. Sometimes they could get quite ruthless on the X platform. So I gotta be very cautious here on YouTube because YouTube doesn't like nasty language. And from Fact Post, new footage of Trump testing the lights at his $60 million White House UFC arena, which, according to that poster, it was fully funded and paid for by the UFC, which I'm sure that it was. Not sure if doesn't look like there's any sound. The video's playing. A lot of lasers. Give me a crazy light show. Is that it? They're not going to move the lights or anything? No. All right, just putting on all the lights at once, I guess. Just doing some light testing of the lighting system. All right, and we got Secretary Rubio talking about it on UFC and Freedom 250 at the White House. Quote, it's a gift to the American people. They're going to see their White House in their capital for their nation's birthday, celebrating with a historic event. Well, that would sure be nice if we all were able to watch it somewhere for free. I mean, like, it would be nice if they were to live stream it on, let's say, YouTube. But perhaps maybe they are. All I saw was Paramount Plus, so I assume that's the only place you're going to be able to see it. But maybe you'll be able to watch it elsewhere. I may have to just take a look for myself.
The White House is the people's house. It belongs to the people of the United States. The American 250 celebration belongs to the people of the United States. And there are millions and millions of Americans from all walks of life that are not necessarily attuned to politics or the financial markets or anything else, but they love the sport. And every Saturday, if you got a big event once a month, they're tuning in and they're watching and they host it. For them to be able to see this event with their White House in the background as part of our celebration as a country in our 250 years, I think is a gift to the American people. That's what Sunday is about. It's a gift to the American people. They're going to see their White House in their capital on their nation's birthday, celebrating with a historic event. We could have had a band, and we have great bands. We could have done a Shakespeare in the Park production. There are a lot of things we could have done with it, but this one will have people watching, probably over, 1 billion people all over the world. 1 billion people all over the world will be watching America celebrate its 250th birthday with the White House in the background and some of the best athletes in the world in that octagon. And we're happy to be a part of that, and we're happy to be a part of all the things we're going to be working on together in the years to come.
Especially if there's not a FIFA World Cup match that's overlapping the event with the UFC, which I would imagine they probably would have scheduled it around that. I would think they would have. And another one for Secretary Rubio. We are a nation founded on doing what no one else dared to do and no one else aspired to do.
And that's the foundation. But then beyond that, everything we've done since then as a nation, time and again, how can you achieve some of the things? We're going to put a man on the moon. When President Kennedy announced that we were going to put a man on the moon and return him safely to the earth, no one thought that was possible, and we did it. We are a nation founded on doing what no one else dared to do and no one else aspired to do. And that's the foundation. But then beyond that.
Okay, and I got another one from Secretary Rubio. The whole idea of America is audacious.
I want to make a couple points. People may ask, well, why UFC? We had this deal with the NFL too, but why UFC? So I have a couple reasons why that I think is very powerful. Here's the first. The first is America, and the ideal behind America is the impossible. That someone tells you can't do that, or that's never going to happen. The whole idea of America is audacious. The very idea that America, that you could have a country where founded on the principle that your rights come not from your government or from your leaders, your rights come from your creator, was an audacious idea. No one else believed that at the world at that time. I want to make a couple points. People may ask.
Yeah, he's right. I could have ordered that better, but we all got the idea. And one more from Secretary Marco Rubio. Today, I am sanctioning Cuba's state-owned energy company, Union Cuba Petroleo, or Cupid. Under President Trump's Executive Order 14404, Cuba's communist elites have weaponized energy as a tool of social control and kleptocratic profit. For decades, the regime has stolen and hoarded available fuel, using it for the Castro's private jet. The security services forces used to repress the Cuban people, to keep empty tourist hotels lit up, and to bust people in for fake protests and political stunts, all while the Cuban people have suffered blackouts and waited weeks to fill their cars. President Trump wants a new future for the Cuban people with greater economic and political freedom and opportunity. Until then, we will continue to target the communist regime's ability to leverage its energy trade to further its corrupt agenda and violently repress the Cuban people. So there you have it. And from Ollie Bradley, quote, "We have more embeds with the Department of War right now. Share intelligence. That is the mandate that the president has given us, and we will execute orders." The DEA HQ administrator, Terry Cole, says the gloves are off when it comes to going after the cartels, and that requires close coordination with the Department of War. Catch our full conversation with Administrator Cole on @NewsNation, which you can go visit them. That's just their handle here on the X platform. They'll have that there. But here's a clip from it.
Now, when it comes to the drug boats, obviously there is some coordination between the DEA and Southcom. There has to be, because these boats are allegedly carrying drugs and different illicit activity is on these boats. How engaged is the DEA with Southcom, and will we see these operations continue despite the president today saying they're going to shift their focus to the land borders instead of at sea?
So the president has been very clear with all of us. All the federal entities cooperate with each other, break down the silos, use a holistic approach. The commitment that we've had for the Department of War to the Department of War goes back 40 years. We have worked closely. I have worked closely back in the early 90s with the groups down in Colombia, worked very closely with the ODAs in Afghanistan, worked with them when I was in Mexico. Our support for the Department of War has never been stronger. We have more embeds with the Department of War right now, share intelligence. That is the mandate that the president has given us, and we will execute orders. That's what people need to understand. They are designated terrorists. That means the gloves are off. That means everybody is enabled to do their job, and that requires our close coordination with the Department of War.
Well, that's how you get the job done. Communication is key. You can't effectively do your job as a government agency if you're not communicating effectively with other agencies, including the military. All right, Ambassador. He's the Ambassador Ronald Johnson from Mexico. I'm not even going to pretend to try to even say that, even though I did try to say it, but whatever. Congratulations, Mexico. Today, the FIFA World Cup 2026 begins, the largest sporting event in history, as we celebrate the beautiful game that brings our three nations together, the U.S., Mexico, and Canada. We also celebrate the cooperation, friendship, and shared purpose that help make this the safest and most memorable World Cup in history. It was a privilege to be in this historic stadium as it hosts a FIFA World Cup opening match for the third time, becoming the first stadium in the world to achieve this milestone. Let the games begin. It's just a short clip from the event from the ambassador. That is a big-ass stadium. It is packed. Yep, the games are kicking off. It has officially begun. United States, Team USA plays tomorrow night, I believe, Friday night. That's when they're going to have their first match up. Let's see. The first match will be against Paraguay. Again, it's going to be on Friday, June 12th, according to Google. So we'll be facing off against Paraguay. And Team USA, we actually had a match against Paraguay about a month or two ago, and we beat them. I believe the score was 2-1. I just looked that up, just before I started this. U.S. DOT rapid response. Let's go, Team USA. The FIFA World Cup is here, but let's be clear. FAA and the FBI prohibit the use of drones in no drone zones. They keep posting about this, like U.S. DOT, the FAA. I talked about this yesterday. I think I showed a video from the FBI the other day when they were talking about drones. So everybody is sounding the alarm as far as government agencies go with regard to drones. So they're worried that a lot of people are going to be trying to fly their drones around during some of these events. So don't do that. They have a no drone zone. I think it extends like a mile outside the stadium, something like that. It's a pretty large zone. Unauthorized flights near stadiums or fan festivals will result in major fines, criminal penalties, and the confiscation of your drone.
If you operate drone aircraft, you may want to keep them grounded for the next few weeks. As Skylar Henry reports, FAA says that fines will be as high as $100,000 plus jail time if drones enter restricted drone space.
I think it's like up to a year federal prison.
78 Super Bowls over 39 days. That's how U.S. law enforcement agencies are looking at the 2026 FIFA Men's World Cup.
The largest sporting event, not only in this nation's history, but in the history of the world.
With it comes a super-sized security apparatus, with the government distributing more than $620 million to 11 U.S. host cities. Authorities consider drones a top security risk. They've been a centerpiece of the wars in Iran and Ukraine and a growing recreational hobby.
There is one threat that keeps me up at night. It is from drones.
The Department of Homeland Security is using drones, some from Fordham Technologies, to protect fans on the ground. When Fordham's drone hunter detects a threat, it shoots out a net and brings the object down to a safe location.
You're not creating debris. You're not using explosives. You're not adding to the problem.
Well, and drones have become a lot more unnerving since the Russia-Ukraine war broke out. And the Ukrainians, they'd been purchasing cheap drones, like $100, $200 drones, like the same drones that you could find on Amazon, and they're strapping explosives to them, and they're using them as kamikaze drones. So they've got somebody operating them from, a mile away or whatever. They're watching it on a screen, and as soon as they see a Russian soldier, they just fly it straight into him, and as soon as it makes contact with them, it explodes. And they've been doing that a lot over the last several years, probably since the conflict began. It's like one of those just like crazy things that they're doing in that war. It's wild. So there's a lot of capabilities that these drones have these days. All right, moving on to Senator John Barrasso. Democrats are the chaos party. They are willing to let a vital national security tool expire, undermining American safety and security when millions from around the globe are coming to attend the World Cup. Democrats must work with Republicans to keep Americans safe at all time, or at home, I mean. So they're talking about the FISA, I think it's like another 3-year extension. It's like a FISA 702 or something like that. And Democrats are basically using that as leverage because they didn't want Trump's pick for DNI. So they decided to use that as their leverage. And that's probably why Trump decided to go with another person for DNI. Maybe the Democrats will come around this time. I highly doubt it. I don't think it's going to matter who Trump picks. He could even pick a Democrat to be the head of the DNI. And I'm sure they'll find some way to be just anti whoever that might be. All right, so let's see. Let's go on to the next one. Rapid Response 47. Let's see. DIG Todd Blanche, the acting attorney general, announces the indictments of 3 illegal aliens who took part in a wide-ranging conspiracy to smuggle more than a dozen children into the United States. There are over 15,500 super sponsor cases that we have identified. 15,500. So I guess that's a minimum 15,500 potential arrests, indictments, convictions, those that might be added into our prison system. Not to also include the 550,000 people that were referred to the Treasury who were defrauding the federal government with the payment protection program loans during the COVID era. I mean, like, there's hundreds of thousands of people that are looking to get indicted. Probably by the end of the year alone. Never forget what Joe Biden allowed to happen at our borders. Again, 15,500 super sponsors that were bringing in children that they weren't even related to, and over 400,000 children went missing inside our country under Joe Biden and the Democrats.
For years, open border policies threatened the security of our nation and put countless lives at risk. Under President Trump's leadership, the Department of Justice is working alongside HHS and DHS to secure the border and protect American communities. There's a lot of ways that we do this. It includes punishing those who exploited the system and smuggled unaccompanied children across the border during the prior administration. More than 475,000 unaccompanied children entered the United States during the Biden administration. 475,000.
Okay, I see it corrected.
300,000 cannot be accounted for at the end of 2024.
Let's hear that again.
475,000. Over 300,000 cannot be accounted for at the end of 2024.
300,000.
The way that this happened was typically because the criminals calling themselves sponsors trafficked these children to the border, usually committing fraud to do so. And oftentimes the children were abused, assaulted, and certainly exploited.
Yeah, enslaved, and God knows what happened to them. It's impossible to even imagine without just absolutely just getting your blood boiling, seeing red. Kash Patel, FBI director, he said that the FBI has rescued somewhere around the number of 15,000, maybe between 15 and 20,000 children that they've been able to find since Trump took office and since Kash Patel became the head of the FBI. So they're making movement, but still 300,000. They still have a long way to go before they find all of them. And some of them that they found were not even living anymore. Some of them had died while in these people's quote unquote care, doing God knows what to them. It's appalling.
In some cases, individuals would sponsor multiple children, which required them to lie to government personnel and on government forms, claiming they were close relatives when in fact they were not. They would use fake or stolen identities and make other false claims during the application process in order to...
Some of them were drugged. They drugged some of those children on the border so they couldn't communicate with the agents if they were contacted. So then they would tell the agents, oh, well, we've been up all day, so she's really tired or he's really tired and they can't talk with you. And then they would say, okay, all right, you're free to go. You can go.
Obtain custody of the children. I think I'm stating the obvious that when government fails to protect our borders, it is the most vulnerable who suffer. And this department and this administration has zero tolerance for unlawful activity and is committed to protecting children who suffered the consequences of open borders. Today, we are announcing the indictments of 3 individuals: Maritza Kawik Koch, her brother, Carlos Agustin Kawik Koch, and Gladys Marina Call Chen. This was out of the Northern District of Ohio. All 3 are illegal aliens from Guatemala who allegedly took part in a wide-ranging conspiracy to smuggle more than a dozen children into the United States by scamming the system and exploiting the loopholes created by the last administration.
Just a drop in the bucket.
This is one example, one indictment, but it is not unique. There are over 15,500 super sponsor cases that we have identified along with DHS.
15,000.
And again, these super sponsor cases are when somebody sponsors more than 3 children, unrelated, and they're unaccompanied minors that come in the United States.
So we're talking
I also
like
want to
50,000
announce
minimum
today,
children.
from the same district in Ohio, the Northern District, the sentencing of another criminal illegal alien who was convicted, also from Guatemala. He was a 27-year-old man who came to the United States, smuggled in a 14-year-old child by submitting false paperwork and lying on the forms, claiming to be her brother, proceeded to sexually assault this young woman. And these 2 cases, well, only 2, help explain how what was going on is really the stuff of nightmares.
Yeah, it is.
Now, these charges
Democrats are evil, man.
Brought by the Department of Justice show the important partnership between HHS and DHS and with the Department of Justice. All of us are going after those who illegally brought children to this country.
Yeah, and think about it. Democrats are trying to dismantle and dissolve and destroy the agencies that are trying to find these children. Immigration and Customs Enforcement are trying to find these children, along with the FBI and all the other agencies. And Democrats want to do away with them. Maybe not the FBI, but they want to do with anything having to do with immigration. Because they don't care about these children. I mean, dude, they're pro-abortion. They don't care about any children. They don't. You get an abortion, and you get an abortion. Everybody gets an abortion. All right, anyway, Rapid Response 47. Another one from Todd Blanche announces the indictments. Okay, so we already heard that, so I'll just go ahead and move on. That's just a different account, Rapid Response 47. And, oh, no, hold it. Here it is. U.S. Department of Justice. Again, it's the same video talking about 3 illegal aliens who allegedly took part in a wide-ranging conspiracy to smuggle more than a dozen children into the United States. Wasn't sure at the time if that was going to be the same video, but it's the same video clip. All right, so Red Wave Press, DHS Secretary Mark Wayne Mullen on illegal alien children being picked up by sponsors at the border who then turned them into slaves. It was being reported at the time it was happening, and there was no outrage, and nobody tried to hold these people accountable. Kids now have been paying for it. And just another quick quote, so we'll hear him say it.
It was being reported at the time it was happening. And there was no outrage, and no one tried to hold these people accountable. And kids
they
now
tried to
have
keep
been
it quiet.
paying for it. They've been getting raped over and over and over again because this previous administration chose not to enforce our nation's laws and protect the most vulnerable. That is shameful. It was being reported at the time it was happening. And there was no outrage, and no one tried to hold these people accountable. And kids now have been paying for it. They've been getting...
Yeah, not a word. They haven't said... the media, as far as I know, they didn't say anything. Maybe on Newsmax, maybe on Fox News, maybe on one of the conservative outlets, they may have tried to make that apparent, that there were thousands of children that were going missing, but certainly not on the mainstream outlets. They weren't going to say a word on that. And from the New York Post, Trump administration has found 146,000 migrant kids who went missing under Biden, according to the Department of Homeland Security chief, DHS, I'm assuming Mark Wayne Mullen. Trump administration, 146,000. That's a lot more than I initially thought, because Kash Patel said, it might have been a couple of months ago at this point, the number that he gave out, like I said, between 15,000 and 20,000 kids were recovered. But that's just by the FBI. And that doesn't include all the other agencies and perhaps kids that just found their way to the authorities in some way or another and were able to get help. And out of Washington, Homeland Security Secretary Mark Wayne Mullen said on Thursday that the Trump administration found at least 146,000 migrant children that were unaccounted for during the Biden administration. So this is a link. I'm not sure where this goes. Is it another New York Post article? Yeah, okay. So DOJ charges 3. All right, so yeah, we already went over that. A total of 450,000 went missing under former President Joe Biden, and nearly 300,000 are still unaccounted for, Mullen said at a news conference. Quote, we're investigating reports to where some of these kids claim that they were forcefully penetrated 600 to 700 times. He added, I don't care who you are. I don't care if you have kids. If you don't have kids, I don't care if you're a liberal, independent, if you're a Democrat or you're a Republican. And so some of the images of the border, getting through the razor wire fencing, and obviously children. Absolutely despicable that they allowed this to happen. If you can't stand for law enforcement to go find these kids, who are you? Who are you? Mullen fumed. And do you know where we're finding the most of them? In sanctuary cities, in Democrat cities, Democrat strongholds. That's where all these missing children are most likely located. Major metropolitan centers like New York City, Chicago, LA have refused to cooperate with federal immigration enforcement as a result of their sanctuary policies. So Democrats are legitimately protecting and hiding and shielding individuals who have effectively kidnapped children by the dozens, if not by the hundreds, and they're forcefully penetrating them on a regular basis. Sorry, I can't use the R word on YouTube. That's the next best thing I got. The Department of Homeland Security Office of the Inspector General revealed the hundreds of thousands of missing migrant kids in an August 2024 report. Between fiscal years 2019 and 2023, more than 448,000 unaccompanied minors were in Immigration and Customs Enforcement's custody before being transferred to the custody of the Department of Health and Human Services for resettlement with domestic partners, the IG's report found. Of those, 291,000 migrant children were never issued notices to appear in federal immigration courts after being released from HHS. Not being released to them, being released from them to God knows who. And of course, conveniently, they didn't keep any records. They have no idea who the people were that they handed them off to. They just said, here, how many children you want? Okay, yeah, here you go, you can have them. And 32,000 never even showed up at all for their scheduled court dates. The rest are presumed to be missing children. Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche in the same press conference announced charges against 3 Guatemalan nationals in Ohio who had submitted false information to serve as sponsors for kids and get payouts. Senator Chuck Grassley applauded Mullen and Blanche for announcing the efforts to prosecute those who abused the migrant sponsor program and let hundreds of thousands of kids go missing. And you know what? These politicians, like the people who were tasked with this, whoever the head of HHS was at the time, they all should be criminally indicted for this. Like, absolutely. I spent years sharing whistleblower evidence of migrant child trafficking with the Biden administration while my Democrat colleagues turned a blind eye, which is what Grassley posted on X. And Trump's HHS has also prioritized investigating tens of thousands of leads about migrant kids abused by S predators or trafficked by gangs like MS-13 due to lax sponsor vetting. Records from HHS Office of Refugee Resettlement previously revealed that the Biden-era officials had ignored obvious safety risks. When then, here we go, HHS Secretary Xavier Becerra, that person should be criminally indicted, likening the ideal turnover rate of the kids released to an assembly line, according to the New York Times. Well, there you have it. So that's what they're reporting on the New York Post. Just absolutely maddening, infuriating, especially being a parent. It's just hard to even imagine. All right, Homeland Security, it's shameful that we have governors in sanctuary cities that are refusing to allow their law enforcement to join in the 287G program, where we simply go after the worst of the worst. That's all they're going after. They want to go after the worst of the worst. They want to find these kids, for fuck's sakes. That's what they want to do. And these governors, which we'll get to the governor of Virginia here in a minute, they're not allowing that to happen. They want to shield the predators whose kids that they have in their custody, illegal immigrant children. And we have no idea where they are. No thanks to these governors.
About the 287G program, which is the greatest partnership we can have. It's shameful that we have governors like in Virginia and governors in New York and governors in California and
pick your blue state. Name that governor.
And
it's
other
on the bingo card.
Sanctuary states that are refusing to allow their law enforcement to join in the 287G program, where we simply go after the worst of the worst. And we say to local law enforcement and to state enforcement that if you will help us, you don't have to enforce, just if you run across these individuals, keep them. We'll pay you for your time. We'll even give you some of the equipment, and we'll pay for some of the equipment. Just hold them.
There you go.
And we'll come pick them up.
Just hold on to them.
And we have sanctuary states now that are popping up, and like New Jersey, that are saying, no, it's against the law for any state agency or any local agency to join in the 287G program to enforce our nation's laws.
Yeah,
I don't even
federal
know
law.
how that's possible, to be honest with you.
It's ridiculous.
Why wouldn't you want to take the worst of the worst off your streets? Why would we allow it? Let me just give you one statistic. 50% of all the murders that's happened in Fairfax County are by illegals. 41 individuals in Tennessee have been killed this year by illegals, well, in the last 12 months. Why? Why would any politician say that we wouldn't want to get those individuals off our streets? Why wouldn't they want to partner?
These liberal
with
white
DHS
women governors, they're dangerous.
The 287G program to help rid this type of activity out of our country and out of your communities. And I can't make sense of stupidity sometimes.
Yeah, well, they're psychopathic. They're ideologically driven. They just want to burn the whole thing down, and they don't care how they do it. They've got a grudge against America, although I don't know how deep it goes or where the hell they got that grudge from, but they certainly got it. From the U.S. Department of Justice, the Justice Department files complaint challenging Virginia mask ban and identification requirements for federal officers. Quote, law enforcement officers risk their lives every day to keep Americans safe, and they do not deserve to be doxxed or harassed simply for carrying out their duties, said Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche. Virginia's anti-law enforcement policies regulate the federal government and are designed to create risk for our agents. These laws cannot stand. Well, they already tried pulling this shit in California, and it was overturned. So I would imagine the exact same thing's going to happen again. I don't know why they would even try to propose this when it was already struck down in California. So this is going to be on justice.gov. And with that, I'm talking about the masks. When Governor Newsom signed that ridiculous law saying that federal agents are not allowed to wear masks when they're conducting operations inside California, which he doesn't have the authority to do that. Justice Department files complaint challenging Virginia mask ban and identification requirements for federal officers. And as I've said before, if they have an identifying number, if they have like a 4-digit or a 5-digit number on their jacket, I wouldn't be exactly opposed to that. But that's not what the Democrats want. They want their first name. They want their last name. They probably want their phone number on the other side of their jacket. They probably want their address on their back, and God knows what else. And today, the Department of Justice filed a lawsuit against the Commonwealth of Virginia and Virginia Acting Attorney Attorney General Jay Jones, and Commonwealth Attorney for Fairfax, Virginia, Steve Descano, challenging their unconstitutional attempt to regulate federal law enforcement officers by criminally prohibiting federal officers from wearing masks, requiring individual identifiers, and functionally banning cooperative 287G agreements with numerous local law enforcement agencies dedicated to helping enforce the nation's laws. And then they've got the Virginia codes. Look, just tell them, Just tell them that your agency is just trying to be careful with this season's COVID, that they don't want to pass around the COVID, social distancing, double masking. That should be fine with them, with the Democrats. I mean, they were all about triple, quadruple masking. Not only is the law an illegal attempt to regulate the federal government, but as alleged in the complaint, the law threatens the safety of federal officers who have faced an unprecedented wave of harassment, doxing, and even violence. Threatening officers with prosecution for simply protecting their identities and their families also chills the enforcement of federal law and compromises sensitive law enforcement operations. Well, that's what they want. They want to destroy morale among federal law enforcement agents to the point where they just don't want to do the job anymore. Law enforcement officers risk their lives every day to keep Americans safe, and they do not deserve to be doxxed or harassed simply for carrying out their duties. Governor Spanberger cannot tell federal officers how to do their job, said Associate Attorney General Stanley Woodward, and she certainly cannot prohibit them from ensuring their own safety and conducting federal law enforcement operations. Our suit today stops those unconstitutional efforts. The Department of Justice will steadfastly protect the privacy and safety of law enforcement from unconstitutional state laws like Virginia's, said Assistant Attorney General Brett A. Shumate of the Justice Department's Civil Division. Acting Attorney General Blanche has instructed the Department's Civil Division to identify state and local laws, policies, and practices that facilitate violations of federal laws or impede lawful federal operations. Today's lawsuit is the latest in a series of lawsuits brought by the Civil Division targeting illegal policies designed to thwart federal law enforcement across the country, including in Virginia and New Jersey and California. And it looks like that's all we got for that, which of course that was updated today, June 11th, 2026. And let's move on to the next. From Governor Rick Scott. Can you tell him from Florida? Anyway, from Senator Rick Scott, former Governor Rick Scott, illegally crossing our border is in fact illegal and has consequences. My new bill with based Mike Lee of Utah and Tim Sheehy, Montana, right? I'm assuming MT, of course, Montana, doubles civil fines for illegal aliens and the businesses who hire them. We won't allow hardworking Americans who follow the rules to get ripped off. Look, as I've said before, I think countless times by now, that there's the E-Verify system that's been around for over 20 years, I think. I think it's been around for a hell of a long time, and I believe that E-Verify was designed to do exactly that, to prevent illegal immigrants from being hired in workplaces. And maybe I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, drop a comment, let me know. I'll read it tomorrow on tomorrow's episode. But I believe that's the whole purpose for E-Verify. So it's a very easy way to verify whether if they're an illegal immigrant or not. So with that said, don't just double the penalties, quadruple them. Hit them 10 times and hit them like, I don't know, at a minimum, double the penalties, but issue that same fine day after day until they finally let them go. And then they report them to authorities so they can be processed. So, all right, exclusive. Senator Rick Scott introduces a bill to double civil penalties on illegal aliens and employers who hire them. That's on Breitbart, and doesn't look like that he included that. But that's okay, because I still know how to use Google. Exclusive. Senator Rick Scott introduces the bill to double the civil penalties on the illegal aliens. Introduced legislation Thursday that would raise civil fines on illegals who enter or attempt to enter the United States unlawfully or fail to leave after being ordered removed, while also increasing penalties for employers who knowingly hire unauthorized workers. Senator Scott's bill, titled the Illegal Immigration Cost Recovery Act, is being co-sponsored by Senator Mike Lee, Republican from Utah, and Senator Tim Sheehy, Republican from Montana. This legislation would amend federal immigration law to increase civil financial penalties for 3 categories covered in the bill text. Number 1, aliens who enter or attempt to enter the United States without authorization. Number 2, alien subject to a final order of removal who fail or refuse to depart from the United States. And number 3, employers that knowingly hire aliens who are not authorized to work in the United States. The bill says that civil penalties for improper entry would rise from the current range of $50 to $250 to a new range of $200 to $1,000. Okay, so it sounds like they're increasing it up to 5x. That's what my suggestion was, more or less. The bill would also raise the civil penalty for failure to depart from $500 to $1,996. The measure would also increase employer penalties for knowingly hiring unauthorized aliens. For a first offense, the bill would raise the penalty range from just $250. That's it. I mean, no wonder they're hiring illegal immigrants. I mean, $250 is nothing these days. Not for, companies who hire dozens of workers, but moving the penalty up from $250 to $2,000 to a new range of $1,400. Okay, so that was the existing one, not just $250. It was a range between $250 and $2,000. That was the original penalty range. The new range is going to be anywhere from $1,432 all the way up to $11,448. Now that's more like it. For a second offense, the penalty range would rise from $2,000 to $5,000 up to $11,448 to $28,616. And for any subsequent offenses, the penalty range would increase from anywhere between $3,000 and $10,000, which is where it is currently, all the way up to $17,172 to $57,238. So that is the new proposal, anywhere from $17,000 to $57,000. Where right now it's sitting at between $3,000 and $10,000, and that's for any subsequent offenses after the first and second one. The bill would require annual inflation adjustments for the revised civil penalties beginning October 1st, 2027, under the Consumer Price Index for all urban consumers. So the penalties are going to adjust with inflation, sounds like. The Secretary of Homeland Security would be required to publish the updated amounts in the Federal Register by December 15th each year, with the adjusted amounts applying to penalties assessed on or after January 1st of the following year. And the article goes on from there. I won't read the whole thing. I'll just stop there, and I'll have that linked below in the description. And let's rock and roll to the next one. From U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, watch ICE and ERO Los Angeles arrested a criminal illegal alien from El Salvador who was released into the public thanks to California's sanctuary policies.
Los Angeles ICE arrested criminal illegal alien Gustavo Irvin Tejeda on May 13, 2026. A citizen of El Salvador, Tejeda's criminal record includes spousal battery, narcotics possession, and assault with a deadly weapon.
Wonderful. That's who California's protecting. Not Americans. No, they're protecting the criminals. Of course they are. All right, Senate Republicans. The Working Families Tax Cuts has lifted 4.3 million Americans off of food stamps and stripped illegal aliens from the rolls. So that's why the numbers had tanked so much, because they removed illegal immigrants off of our SNAP program. Each and every Senate Democrat voted to spend your tax dollars on benefits for illegal aliens. And it's not just the SNAP food or the food stamps, the SNAP benefits. Of course, it was housing. Of course, it was, what was it, Medicare? Or in California, it's what, Medi-Cal or something like that. So they were getting health benefits, among many other things. Monthly number of SNAP participants changed from a year earlier. So this is going back to October 2023, it appears, then year 24, 25, 26. So, of course, this year, it absolutely dropped like a rock because they removed the illegal immigrants off of the SNAP benefits program. Of course, Democrats, they won't say that. They'll say, no, the Trump administration is removing innocent children. Children are literally starving now because they don't have SNAP benefits. But no, the reality is illegal immigrants don't have the SNAP benefits anymore. All right, so DEA Houston, a lot of meth, 800 pounds of meth, which is a shitload of meth, was hidden in a squash shipment. The DEA and McAllen agents, along with Hidalgo County HIDTA Task Force, CBP, and HSI, discovered over 800 pounds of meth concealed within crates of squash as part of a Homeland Security Task Force operation. They tied in the Justice Department and the DEA headquarters. So there you go. There's the squash with a little bit of meth bricks sprinkled in between them. And that's all of it, man. That's a lot of meth. It's a lot, man. It looks like pages in a book. Actually, it just looks like stacks and stacks of books. That's what it looks like to me. But nope, those ain't books, man. That's meth. It's a lot of meth. That's enough to feed an addiction for, I don't know, thousands of people probably, at least for a fairly substantial amount of time. But not that shipment. They got busted. And from the U.S. Secret Service led a coordinated international operation that arrested 2 individuals for operating a cryptocurrency money laundering service responsible for more than $389 million in unlawful transactions. The operation, conducted alongside the IRS and law enforcement partners across 11 different countries, resulted in seizures of cryptocurrency assets and the takedown of the Audi A6 computer infrastructure. And this is on secretservice.gov. So they even have a publication on this, which was, of course, published today on June 11th of 2026. 2 charged in connection with cryptocurrency money laundering service that allegedly laundered over $389 million in unlawful transactions. I'm surprised they're able to recover all of this cryptocurrency because, you know, there's ways to make it damn near impossible to recover it. From what I understand, you can even take a crypto wallet and put all your cryptocurrency into it, and you can print off the code of that crypto wallet onto a piece of paper. You can print it off of your computer, and you can stash that code anywhere. They can't find it by metal detector or anything like that because it's on a piece of paper. And wherever you stash it, unless they find that specific piece of paper with that code on it, or if you lose it, it's gone forever. Like, there's no way to recover it. But who knows? Maybe they've got these insane tools at their disposal, the federal government, in order to perhaps recover it in other ways than that. I don't know. But that was always my understanding, is that if you, like, there's ways that you could stash your cryptocurrency in ways that would be just absolutely impossible for anybody to get a hold of, including yourself if you lost the key. All right, so coordinated international operation led to takedown of defendants' Audi A6 money laundering infrastructure out of Philadelphia. United States Attorney David Metcalf announced that Ruslan Igorovich Takchuk, age 37, and Alexander Vladimirovich Ledenev, age 25, both residing in Batumi, Republic of Georgia, were arrested on Wednesday and charged by criminal complaint with one count of conspiracy to launder monetary instruments and one count of sting money laundering arising from their alleged operation of Audi A6, a cryptocurrency money laundering service believed responsible for laundering more than $389 million in cryptocurrency. A coordinated international takedown of Audi A6 and its infrastructure was conducted in conjunction with yesterday's arrest. The takedown resulted from parallel investigations by the United States Secret Service, Internal Revenue Service Criminal Investigation, or IRSCI, and also Europol and Eurojust and other international law enforcement partners, including Australia and Canada, France, Georgia, Germany, Iceland, Japan, Poland, Switzerland, and the United Kingdom. So it was a global effort. I mean, that's a lot of money we're talking. A joint action took place and involved the following. 3 properties were searched. Also, servers and domains linked to the criminal infrastructure were targeted in the United States and Iceland, Germany, and France. Telegram accounts used by the network were blocked, cryptocurrency assets were frozen, and digital devices were seized. And the dark web and dark web websites of the Audi A6 service and the dark 2 web cybercrime forum, one of the sites where Audi A6 advertises its services, were replaced with a law enforcement seizure banner. I love these, man. That has got to, like, absolutely just put you on edge instantly if you're a regular user of that website and all of a sudden you see this. The website has been seized. And it's, of course, it has the Audi A6 logo on it, the Dark 2 Web logo. This domain has been seized by the United States Secret Service pursuant to a seizure warrant obtained by the United States Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of Pennsylvania. And then they've got all the law enforcement badges and logos and everything. Of course, Secret Service being front and center. So anyway, so that happened. And I won't go and read the entire thing. I'll just have the rest of it just down below in a form of a link for you. Moving on to the White House task force to eliminate fraud. The fraud and corruption ends today. Scott Brady, PA, Executive Director of the White House Fraud Task Force, Trump U.S. Attorney, 8th generation Western Pennsylvanian. And from the New York Post, White House's scathing 6-word message to L.A. as it pulls the plug on the city's largest homeless agency. And I'm assuming the 6 words was the original post. The White House's scathing 6-word. Okay, so here, let me just start here. From the White House, it issued a scathing message to LA as it pulled the plug on funding for the city's largest homeless agency. The newly created task force to eliminate fraud, led by Vice President J.D. Vance, said the quote, "The fraud and corruption ends today." There's the 6-word message for him. As it wiped out federal cash flow to Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority. So they're no longer getting any federal funding. I'm not sure how much of it was federal funds, but over the last 5 years, California has received $24 billion, with a B, billion dollars for homelessness. And all they got out of it was more homeless people. That's the only thing that they ended up getting out of it. And of course, they can't, apparently, they have no means to track and trace where all this money went. Apparently, there's no money or a paper trail to where all this money went, which makes no sense because anything that money touches these days has a paper trail, which I would assume that the White House Fraud Task Force and probably the DOJ will maybe get down to the bottom of it to find out where all of this money went, which amounts to about $130,000 per homeless person in California, by the way. In a post on X, its executive director, Scott Brady, added, "For years, American taxpayers have been sending billions to Los Angeles. The result? Just fraud and corruption and lots of tent cities and lots of homeless people. Year after year, there's just more and more." The Trump administration accused the agency of wanton mismanagement after nearly $1 billion in federal money flowed to the organization since 2021. Okay, so the vast majority of the $24 billion must have been state funded. The Department of Housing and Urban Development, which is part of the task force, informed LAHSA leadership Thursday that it was immediately suspending the agency's participation in federal programs while HUD's Inspector General investigates potential misconduct involving the agency and its leadership. The announcement means nearly $200 million of LAHSA's funding is suspended immediately. In a letter obtained by Fox, HUD accused LAHSA of obvious fraud and repeated failures to protect taxpayer dollars, officially under investigation. It is about damn time. And I bet pretty much any of these organizations that received not only federal funding, but state funding too, I'm sure they've got to be rife with fraud. Because look, they didn't fix the problem. They didn't even put a dent in the problem. The problem only got worse. And if the problem only got worse after you threw $24 billion worth of money at it, obviously there's something nefarious going on. Anyway, the agency cited allegations involving conflicts of interest and financial mismanagement, the lack of oversight, and concerns about how federal homelessness funding was administered. HUD noted LAHSA has received nearly $1 billion in federal funding since 2021 and argued that the agency's failures have become too severe to ignore. The letter reportedly references the resignation of former LAHSA CEO Valencia Adams-Kellum, who dodged out of the way at the last possible moment, apparently, who stepped down last year after it was revealed that $2.1 million of federal funds overseen by LAHSA has been directed to a nonprofit organization that employed her husband. Uh-oh. Sounds like somebody's in some hot water. And that's just the bullshit that they play, man. That's what they do. They play these stupid games. And they end up living in these nice, massive McMansions, ivory towers. God knows how many people have enriched themselves from programs like this. HUD also pointed to findings by a federal judge who concluded LAHSA's committed obvious fraud after allegedly continuing to seek funding for an 88-bed shelter despite knowing the facility was operating at roughly half capacity. The judge reportedly even considered placing the agency into receivership. Wow. Additional concerns cited by HUD include LAHSA's inability to verify the existence of nearly 2,300 housing sites under its oversight and findings that approximately 70% of contracts tied to those 2,300 housing sites showed no reported expenses during the previous year. So what? Apparently they just don't even exist. Public audits found LAHSA routinely paid service providers late and maintained inadequate records needed to monitor contracts and spending. Isn't that ironic? Like the higher-ups in this organization are enriching themselves off the backs of literal homeless people. These people are evil. HUD further cited a November 2024 city controller audit that found LAHSA failed to spend approximately $513 million in homelessness funding budgeted for fiscal year 2024, attributing the issue to staffing shortages and outdated technology systems. Or the money just disappeared into everybody's pockets. The federal action comes as local leaders have already begun moving away from LAHSA. Los Angeles County voted last year to create a new county homelessness department. Oh, yeah. So that's convenient. Okay, well, let's just do away with that one. You know, we'll use the same building. We'll probably use the same staff, but let's just give it a different name. I mean, that's really what they're probably going to end up doing, and shift hundreds of millions of dollars away from the agency. It's so ridiculous. LAHSA and much of the city's homelessness spending fall under the jurisdiction of the Los Angeles City Council's Homelessness and Housing Committee, which is chaired by mayoral candidate, council member Nithya Raman, I guess. The committee is responsible for reviewing homelessness programs and contracts and funding allocations and performance reports and policy recommendations before they move through City Hall. And you know what? I'm already here at the bottom. Might as well finish it. California Post reached out to Raman's office and LAHSA for comment. And, of course, they didn't get one. At least, it doesn't look like they got one. So according to Fox, HUD Secretary Scott Turner said the agency would no longer allow federal funds to flow to an organization accused of failing to properly manage taxpayer money, which they're not. Nope. Chances are the higher-ups are just using that money to enrich themselves. I hope I'm wrong. Hopefully it was just a lack of intelligence that allowed the money just to disappear like a fart in the wind, and the only thing they got to show out of it is just thousands of more homeless people than they've ever had. More and more, year after year. And moving on to the Department of Housing and Urban Development. Well, we're not quite moving on. It's still in the same topic. Secretary Turner is putting the homeless industrial complex on notice. If you are committing fraud, you are on notice. So we got a segment here.
We also have a Fox News exclusive. The Housing Department is cutting off tens of millions in federal funding from LA's homeless program. over what it calls mismanagement and lack of safeguards against potential fraud. David Spunt live at the Justice Department. Hi, David.
Hi, Dana. Hi, Bill. This is a huge blow to this L.A. homeless authority. It's called LAHSA. They just were informed within the last hour that they are losing these tens of millions of dollars. They've gotten almost over $1 billion since 2021 in federal taxpayer funding. Now they're going to lose it as this investigation goes underway. This is from the White House.
Okay, so right away, I got to correct myself. Well, first of all, LAHSA, obviously I was pronouncing it wrong the whole time. Just this organization got $1 billion in taxpayer funding, not the whole state of California. The way that I read it, it sounded like that the state of California received $1 billion in homelessness funding since 2021. No, it appears that LAHSA, the LA homeless agency, they got $1 billion from the federal government since 2021, just them exclusively. So perhaps the $21 billion may have been funded, the lion's share of which came from the federal government. Perhaps, maybe.
Task force in coordination with housing and urban development. This is a 13-page letter that we obtained exclusively sent to this agency. According to the letter, LAHSA's received, as I said, $1 billion from HUD since 2021. The letter goes on quickly to point out that L.A. County has withdrawn funding for the agency. The city of L.A. is considering the same. The letter continues. HUD has evidence that LAHSA's repeated false statements and its irresponsible actions and failures, including its lack of financial management, internal controls, and safeguards against conflicts of interest, pose a threat to HUD, the public, and those living on the streets of L.A. Now, homelessness is a real problem in L.A. and other parts of California. It became a central focus of Republican mayoral candidate Spencer Pratt's campaign, though he ultimately was defeated at the polls. According to the numbers, $953 million was allocated in fiscal year 25-26 by the agency. Approximately 44,000 unhoused homeless people, approximately $22,000 per homeless person spent. FTC Chairman Andrew Ferguson, who's the vice chair of the fraud task force, says that LA didn't care about the homeless, but the Trump administration does. Ferguson is part of this overall task force. And they don't just have their eyes set on Los Angeles, really all 50 states, but a big blow to this agency today, guys.
That's really interesting and a theme, of course, in the last few months with the administration. Thank you so much.
Well, yeah, they haven't done shit for the homeless in California except just allow them to set up tents and create tent cities all over the place. It's absolutely ridiculous. Although they are trying to convert some of the Pacific Palisades. Sounds like they're trying to seize some of that property, the state of California, to turn it into low-income housing or even homelessness housing, which is just brutally insane. That they burned down the entire, what amounts to basically a small city, and then they're going to start gobbling up those people's properties, probably for pennies on the dollar, so they could build what they call homeless shelters, which probably won't be homeless shelters. It'll be just low-income housing that the state government controls. But not sure if that's in any way related to that. Probably isn't. But it just makes you wonder, where was all this money going? Because it wasn't going to the homeless, because they're still full of homeless people in California, more than any other state by a long shot. And, as far as the resources that they provide to homeless people, like in places like New York City, they put up drug paraphernalia vending machines and stuff like that. So maybe that's what they were doing in LA. They were just allowing them to get free drug paraphernalia, maybe. All right, moving on. Blaise Ngoglia, the new leader in the clubhouse for wasteful and excessive spending is Miami-Dade County, with over $470 million in fiscal year 2025 and 26, and a grand total of $807 million over the last 3 years. That's an insane amount of overspending. Miami-Dade is quickly becoming the poster child for unsustainable government growth. Wow. Miami-Dade County wasted, that's the amount of money that they've wasted from the FAFO audit. So, that's what they say. Not sure if they've got it confirmed with any kind of .gov source or anything. Probably not. So, like I said, before with the other post earlier, I would take it with a grain of salt. But anyway, how many has this guy got following him? Yeah, 20,000. I'd probably take that with a grain of salt. But I wouldn't put it past it. Miami is absolutely exploding in size and economic growth for sure. No doubt about that. And FBI Director Kash Patel, this is only the first within the first week of announcing the most wanted fraudster list. The FBI has the top 10 most wanted list for fraudsters now, which they announced last week, or maybe it was at the beginning of this week. They just announced it, and there's more to come. So they already got the first on that top 10 most wanted list of fraudsters. FBI nabs the first accused of stealing over $4.2 million meant for childcare. And he's got this on from Fox News. Minnesota man, of course from Minnesota. Why wouldn't it be from Minnesota? Marks the FBI's first arrest from DOJ's most wanted fraudsters list. The FBI director announced Wednesday that Saeed Abdullah Ireg, a former Minneapolis grocery and deli owner, had surrendered to federal authorities, marking the first person on the FBI's new most wanted fraudsters list to be taken into custody as federal authorities continue with a nationwide fraud crackdown. I'm surprised he's even inside this country still. Saeed Abdullah Ireg, 47, faces charges including conspiracy to commit wire fraud and money laundering. The FBI and Ireg, a former South Minneapolis grocery and deli owner, surrendered to federal authorities less than a week after the Justice Department unveiled its most wanted fraudsters list, which is intended to publicly identify individuals charged with major fraud cases. So obviously they announced that at least last week. Today's arrest is historic. The first ever arrest of a subject on our most wanted fraudsters list released last week. There you go. With the White House task force to eliminate fraud, Patel said in a statement. And there he is. That's the guy that was on the most wanted list. And they got him. Which I guess to be fair to this dude, he did turn himself in. I mean, it wasn't like the FBI hunted him down and then apprehended him the hard way. But still, I mean, they got him one way or another. Authorities said Ireg had been wanted on federal charges since 2024 and is fraudulently obtaining more than $4.2 million from the federal child nutrition program during the COVID-19 pandemic. According to federal officials, Ireg operated Evergreen Grocery and Deli, a Minneapolis grocery store and deli under the sponsorship of the nonprofit Feeding Our Future. And that's what this leads to. What to know about Minnesota's Feeding Our Future fraud at the center of Trump's latest crackdown. And I think we've all probably heard of Feeding Our Future at this point, $250 million scandal that Ilhan Omar wrote the legislation to make that massive fraud scheme possible. And prosecutors allege he falsely claimed to have served meals to children in need, fraudulently obtained government reimbursements, and laundered the proceeds through foreign accounts while using some of the money to finance a lavish lifestyle. And here's the most wanted fraudsters list, which they've got 8 on this list. I don't know if there's a page 2 where they've got 2 more, because Kash Patel did say that it is a top 10 list. So, but all that I saw was 8. So maybe they haven't completed the top 10 list. Maybe, I don't know. But that's the same graphic that I showed a week ago when they first announced it. And that's the dude down here on the bottom left. And he's been officially apprehended by the FBI. Okay, let's see what else we got. Let's move on to the next. From Assistant Attorney General Harmeet Dillon, the Civil Rights Division is investigating CUNY, C-U-N-Y, for distributing educational resources based on race, which is a no-no. When a university accepts federal funding, it must follow federal law. This Justice Department will ensure educational institutions do not discriminate based on race.
So CUNY is using race to distribute educational resources for select non-white minorities. And there's this chancellor who says grants are canceled, but they got millions of dollars. Talk to us about what CUNY could lose because of this blackmail initiative.
Blackmail? Uh-oh.
Well, so what CUNY is doing is it is directing funds and resources towards recruitment in admissions, and then also financial resources and financial aid disproportionately favoring African American men and students in general.
That's a no-no.
This is illegal under Students for Fair Admissions. Our universities are not allowed to do this. They're not allowed to favor people on the basis of race. It's pretty simple. Nope. And every time a university, and there are over 6,000 of them that get federal funding, gets money from the federal government, they're certifying that they're in compliance with our federal laws, and this is called Title VI. And so under Title VI, they could lose funds that they have obtained under false pretenses. And so this is what's at risk for CUNY and other schools that are doing this type of a program.
Oh, you know they're not the only one. You know, whatever universities that CUNY is tied to, I'm sure they're probably doing the same thing at all those other universities too. So this is probably just the first domino to fall as far as their organization's concerned. Another one from Assistant Attorney General Harmeet Dillon. Check out the incredible action our Civil Rights Division delivered this week. The Justice Department continues working tirelessly to protect and serve all Americans every day. So let's see what else they've been up to.
Hi, I'm here to talk about the exciting week in review that we've had at the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division this week. So starting out with Monday, we launched a Title IX compliance review to 4 different California school districts that are pushing sexual orientation and gender identity programming on K through 12 and students as young as an elementary school, without allowing parents to opt out or even informing them about this programming. And
I covered that this week.
It's disturbing, and it violates parents' rights according to 2 Supreme Court opinions. And so we want to make sure that schools stop doing that. And so we started with these 4 schools. It's actually happening throughout California. One of them is from where I used to live in San Francisco Unified School District. On Tuesday, we focused on a couple of other very important areas. Number one, in the Second Amendment space, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania is violating the rights of citizens who wish to get concealed carry permits or keep them by arbitrarily either revoking or denying those permits if a citizen, a law-abiding citizen, is exhibiting their right to open carry a firearm, which is allowed and is something that Philadelphia has unlawfully interfered with. And so can't have different rules for different people in different cities in Pennsylvania. So we're looking into that. Also, the City University of New York has a Black Male Initiative, which is unlawfully favoring Black males in recruitment, in admissions, in student aid, and in other benefits. This is obviously a violation of students for fair admissions and more generally equal protection. And we want to know what's going on. We're going to, if we find out that this report is indeed substantiated, there will be problems. On Wednesday, moving on to UC Davis Medical School. Now, to date, we have opened up investigations into 30 different medical schools in the United States. And we have completed our reviews of 3 of those medical schools. UC Davis is the 3rd. All 3 of these schools, including UCLA and Yale, are found to be discriminating against students on the basis of admission.
Of course
they are allowing people from certain races to have far lower grades and standards and scores than a white and Asian potential applicants.
Yeah, ridiculous.
This is obviously, again, a violation of Students for Fair Admissions and Equal Protection, and it's a violation for any institution to take federal funding when they're in violation of federal law. So that's going to be a big issue for UC Davis. And then today, we also went with a lawsuit against the New Mexico Supreme Court and its Board of Bar Examiners. And what we found in our investigation regarding New Mexico is that this state is failing to abide by the Service Members Civil Relief Act, which allows service members and their spouses to be able to get their licenses easily transferred from state to state. So in this case, it would be spouses of service members who want to practice law in New Mexico. The state is imposing artificial barriers and requiring them to jump through all the hoops as if they are first-time admittees to the New Mexico bar. They're not allowed to do that under this federal law. We met with them, we tried to work it out, it did not work out. And so New Mexico's in court. And by the way, if other states don't comply, we will be in court with those states as well, because it is our duty to stand up for the rights of service members and their families under that and other laws. And so stay tuned for developments on all of these fronts. Every day is a new day here, and we are bringing cases and setting things right for all Americans at the Civil Rights Division. And I couldn't be prouder of our incredible team doing this every week. Thank you.
All right, well, yeah, with them being busy, that's an understatement. I think every single day, just about every single day on this show, I bring up at least one thing that the DOJ Civil Rights Division's covering, and they're staying on top of. It's just constant. They're just constantly just getting reports of illegal activities happening everywhere from government institutions to colleges, everything in between, even police departments, like what happened in Philadelphia, trying to withhold the issuance of CCWs to lawful firearm owners. And it's ridiculous. So a lot of movements happening, and they're extremely busy. All right, Congressman Mark Messimer says 23% of Chicago, I think that's Chicago, right? Yeah, Chicago public schools, only 23% of Chicago public schools, 4th graders are proficient in reading, and only 24% can do basic math. Apparently, radical political activism is more important to some people than making sure our nation's students can read and count. American children deserve better. Let's have a look.
The academic results produced by Chicago Public Schools are among the lowest in urban areas across the country. In 2024, 31% of 4th graders nationwide were at or above NAEP proficiency. in literacy compared to only 23% of the CPS fourth graders. Similarly, 40% of the public school fourth graders were at or above proficiency in math, while Chicago scored a measly 24%. Giving academic results produced by CPS schools, increasing education options for families in Chicago is obviously urgent. Would you approve a request for students to support school choice and want to voice their desire via what you would call a protest in favor of more school options and greater educational freedom?
CPS values school choice and parents' ability to choose the type of schools they would like for their child to attend.
Okay.
We have options, public schools, we have district-led schools, charter schools, we have magnet schools for our parents to choose from, as well as selective enrollment schools. So we do support school choice.
All right. Well, that's the right answer. That's a good answer, because parents should have the choice. And what a lot of these school districts are doing, if they're getting these performance results just in an abysmal 23 and 24%, well, just lower the standards. If you just lower the standards down enough, then it'll appear as though that they're performing great. Like all of a sudden they'll be at 80% proficiency and 90%. When in reality, all they did was just drop the standards all the way down to the bare minimum, probably even below the bare minimum that would be allowed by law. And that's kind of the way it goes. I mean, there's just a couple of weeks ago, there was a parent who posted an image of the grade point scale in one of California's school districts. And if a student scores anywhere between an 80% and 100%, they get an A. And it's 60, and I could be off by just a little bit, but I believe it's 60% to 80%, the student would get a B. And then, likewise, it moves down from there, like 40% to 60%, you get a C. And likewise, so if you score just a 20% on an exam, you still get a passing grade by that grade scale in that public school system. Insane. It's crazy. I think in order to get an A when I was in high school, when I was in elementary, middle school, and high school, which was back in the 90s and the early 2000s, you had to get at least a 92% in order to get an A. And a B, I believe, went from 86% to 92%. So if you got a 70%, it was like a bare minimum passing grade. It was like a D minus if you got a 70%. Anything lower than that, you just flat out failed. So they've obviously scaled their grade point system absolutely just wildly insane since back when I was in school, at least in California, to where you can only have to get a 20%. Are you fucking crazy? 20%. So that's probably why they're doing that, because they want to make it appear as that their students are very proficient in what they're doing. Oh yeah, we got all the kids in our school are getting straight A's. Well, yeah, because they're scoring as low as an 80% on a test, and you're still giving them an A. That's insane. All right, so let's move on to Senate Republicans. Release your kick messages. Graham for Maine. I'm talking about Graham Plattner, who's running for senator in the state of Maine for the Democrats, and we've got John Fetterman on Fox News talking about this. Mainers deserve to know the truth about P. Hustle.
And now I said, P. Hustle, here's a great chance. You can just prove that all these people that you're dropping those dick pics and saying these things to were over 18. And now I will wear a suit every day in the Senate. Fox News. And now you can set the record clear and provide all those texts and all those conversations that you were having as a newlywed, just before you were going to run for the Senate. And now I say,
there you have it, man. He's not holding back, not even on Fox News, because they also had him on an interview on CNN where he was also talking about Graham Plattner and was saying using the exact same colorful language to describe what Graham Plattner has been accused of doing. And I mean, it makes a good point. Just release everything. What do you got to hide? I mean, I think he's already said he's got nothing to hide. All right, so from Republicans, Democrat Dan Osborne thinks everyone who owns an AR-15 is mentally unstable. And Nebraska Senate candidate Dan Osborne wants preemptive mental health checks for AR-15 owners. Well, who determines who is mentally fit and who doesn't? It's going to be some committee of human beings. It's going to be just a group of individuals who probably are anti-gun individuals who are going to determine, well, we don't think you're quite mentally fit. And do they even have to give you like an on-paper reason why they believe you're mentally unfit? Probably not. No, they probably just say, in our professional medical opinion, you can't have an AR-15. Well, they won't call it an AR-15. They'll call it an assault rifle, an assault weapon. All right, for Daily Caller, let's see what they say here on Daily Caller about this. Nebraska Senate candidate Dan Osborne wants a preemptive mental health checks for AR-15s, and I believe that he wants it like every 5 years. Like if you own an AR-15, like under his psychotic way of thinking, that every 5 years you have to go and get reanalyzed or get a psych evaluation or whatever the hell. This is insanity. The independent challenging Republican Nebraska Senator Pete Ricketts called for owners of modern semi-automatic firearms to undergo a mental health evaluation every 5 years as a prerequisite to renew registration of the guns. So, so he's an independent. So I guess technically, he's not a Democrat, I guess. Dan Osborne, who lost to Republican Nebraska Senator Deb Fischer in the 2024 election, announced his plans to challenge Ricketts in July of 2025. In 2025? I think they mean 2026, I would assume. So this was posted today, June 11th, 2026. So they must have just put down the wrong year. Osborne, who has received support from Democrats in his bid to topple Ricketts, according to Roll Call, suggested the measure during a town hall in June. So again, assuming this month. Nebraska Senate candidate Osborne for Nebraska said he would support a gun registry and red flag laws and a 5-year mental evaluation for owners of America's most popular gun platforms. And who's going to pay for that? Is that going to be the taxpayer, or anybody who owns an AR-15 has to pay for their own mental health evaluation? This radical view would grant government control over, I'm not going to go there, over who can exercise their constitutional rights. It was just opening up the post. So, basically the same thing. And moving on, quote, I said, do you own an assault-style rifle, an AR-15, an M16, an AK-47, or anything like that? He's like, yeah, I got a lot of them, Osborne claimed, according to the Plains Sentinel. Quote, I said, let me ask you, would you have an issue with having to re-register those guns after taking a mental health exam? Let's say, I don't know, just throwing a random number out there every 5 years, which I'm sure is not a random number. I'm sure he carefully thought that number out. He sat for a second and he said, no. Because it is ridiculous. Because registering firearms in the first place is ridiculous. I think it's ridiculous. Pro-Second Amendment organizations have opposed the so-called red flag laws, citing concerns with due process, with the National Rifle Association roasting Osborne's proposal in a Tuesday post on X, which this whole article will be linked in the description. So if you want to check out that post, the link will be here in the article. Nebraska Senate candidate Osborne said he would support a gun registry, red flag laws, and a 5-year mental evaluation for owners of America's most popular gun platforms, the Pro-Second Amendment organization posted. This radical view would grant government control over who can exercise their constitutional rights, their God-given rights. Given that there is nothing even remotely close to requirements like that in the historical tradition of gun control in this country at the time of the founding, that law would face aggressive legal challenges and should be struck down. Yeah, absolutely should be. Second Amendment Foundation Senior Director of Legal Operations William Sack told the Daily Caller News Foundation, the entire premise of fundamental rights is that you don't have the burden of proof to prove to the government when you get to continue to exercise them. Absolutely. Dan Osborne is pushing the agenda of his liberal donors. He wants to force law-abiding citizens to submit to government mental health exams just to keep firearms they already legally own, Ricketts said in a statement to the DCNF. Yeah, because they've already got those laws on the books, which, look, I mean, I think, fundamentally, I think it's against the Second Amendment to require that you not be mentally unfit. Having a documented mental health issue or a history of drug addiction or having a felony on your record, dishonorably discharged from the military. I'm probably leaving one out. I mean, I do agree with non-American citizens not having the right to have guns because they're not American citizens. I mean, that I'm okay with. So anyway, let's see. Quote, this is an extreme position even among gun control activists. As senator, I'll always defend America's Second Amendment rights. Osborne said he supported the Second Amendment when reached for comment by the DCNF. I'm fundamentally in favor of the Second Amendment for everybody, Osborne claimed. Those remarks were taken out of context by a fake news outlet that's run by Pete Ricketts' lackeys. That's not something I'd support, which I'm sure that they've got him on camera. It sure would have been nice if Daily Caller had linked a direct page to where that video could be found. So that way we could see himself actually saying it word for word that, I don't know, 5 years, get a mental health exam every 5 years. And if we determine that you just don't quite make the grade when it comes to your mental fitness, we're just going to take all your guns away from you. Because, it won't just be the AR-15. They'll say, well, if you're not mentally fit to have an AR-15, well, you can't have any other firearms because that wouldn't make any sense. Okay, Rep. Marlin Stutzman, the Chicago Bears, because they have voted to relocate to the great state of Indiana because Illinois is an insane state to host sporting teams these days, apparently. The Chicago Bears relocating is the latest example of conservative policies at work. Leftist economics, like taxing the rich and villainizing businesses, drove the team to look for a place that was better, entering the Hoosier State. Thank you, Steve Scalise, for highlighting the move and noting my post on the relocation of the Bears to their new Indiana home. Once the stadium is complete, we'd love to have you here for a game. And I believe the city is Hammond, Indiana, if I'm not mistaken.
I will point out a Truth Social post that Marlin Stutzman put out over the weekend, chronicling, a lot of you may be familiar, the Chicago Bears are looking at moving right now to Indiana. Yes, the Chicago Bears
wild?
Playing in Indiana. And you would ask why.
Chicago,
he
Indiana.
literally lays out in brutal detail how Democrats at all levels in Chicago and the state of Illinois literally ran the Chicago Bears out of Chicago and out of the state of Illinois. And I think,
and the mayor of Chicago went on an interview 2 days before this decision was made by the board for the Chicago Bears. He said, "Oh, they're not going to move. We take good care of them. We're going to treat them right here."
I think it's just important to point out when you look at what's coming up and what's the difference between the two parties, how one party literally after 100 years of the Chicago Bears playing football in Chicago, they're going to ultimately end up playing in Indiana, and they didn't want to. They wanted to stay.
Of course not.
But now a multi-billion-dollar program with jobs, with tax revenue, all of that is going to leave the state of Illinois because they ran it out of the state through very specific actions that Marlin Stutzman chronicled.
Yeah, they didn't run it out of the city of Chicago. They ran it out of the entire state. Because from what I understand, and look, I never watched sports, so I have extremely limited knowledge when it comes to all this. But from what I read, they refused to allow the Bears to build a new stadium. They would not give them stadium naming rights, which is something that most, if not all other teams in the NFL enjoy. Also, concession revenue for concessions. Also for parking fees. They don't get any of those benefits at all as a team. Like, they're just basically at the mercy of Chicago when it comes to all of that. Like, the city apparently gets to keep all of that revenue, and they don't get any real share of any of it. So those are some of the reasons, at least so I read, as to why that they're moving out of Chicago. And I could only imagine that people, what do they call them, Chicagoans? I'm sure they're really pissed off at this new news that they were driven out, which of course the Democrats they're not going to take any blame for it. They're just going to, I don't even know how the hell they're going to spin it, but they're going to spin it in some way to make them look like the victims, and that the Chicago Bears are just like they embrace like evil right-wing Nazism, and that they're going over to the evil red state of Indiana. So Marlin Stutzman, Democrats destroy, Republicans build. Can you name one city that has gotten better under Democrat leadership? Yeah, that's actually a pretty good question. I can't think of any, but if you can think of any, drop it in the comments, and I'll have a look at it tomorrow. Chicago lost the Bears this week, a team that's been in the city since 1921. They didn't lose them to a bigger market or a better deal. The Bears decided they'd rather be a tenant in Indiana than deal with Illinois for one more year. Think about how badly you have to run a place for that to be the smart move. They lost them for two reasons. I mean, the Chicago Bears, for crying out loud. The people running Illinois would rather villainize a builder than keep one, and they're bad at their jobs. In 2021, the Bears spent $197 million on the old Arlington Park racetrack. Before they could break ground, Cook County valued the empty lot at $192 million. The Bears said $60 million. They were salivating at the chance to extort a building that didn't even exist yet. The fight dragged on for years. The Bears were ready to put $2 billion into the stadium. All they wanted was a promise the county wouldn't reassess them into oblivion, plus $855 million for infrastructure that everyone uses, including roads and transit, utilities, a $3 billion project, 2/3 of it private money pouring into Illinois. Springfield had since 2021 to get this done. They dragged it to the final night of session, passed it through the Senate at 3:39 a.m., and the House went home without voting. I mean, it's almost like they're sadists. It's like they enjoy just like torturing in any way they possibly can. So now it's all gone. The funniest part, this started because Cook County tried to grab the tax early. They knew a built stadium would pay $53 million a year. Now they get under $4 million on a vacant lot. No jobs, no build-out, no new anything. Congrats on fighting for scraps and losing the whole prize. Pritzker says, quote, there an $8.5 billion valued business that doesn't need propping up. But be smart for a second. Almost every NFL city throws in public money for a stadium. Not charity. The return is real. Tourism, hotels, restaurants, jobs, game days, property tax on huge development. The math works. Indiana did the math. While Illinois sat on it for years, Indiana passed a bill within months. And Indiana put up $1 billion. And they took the team. And the Bears took a worse deal to get there. In Illinois, they were going to own their stadium. In Indiana, they rent it from the state. A team that wanted to build its own home gave up ownership just to escape Chicago. Wow. Nobody won but Indiana. The Bears lost their stadium. Illinois lost the team, the $2 billion and the $53 million a year in taxes. Pritzker, after they left, quote, "I wasn't willing to give up billions of dollars of taxpayer money to give it to a billionaire-owned family or team." There it is, billionaire-owned. And here, let's see how much longer this goes on. Okay, so this goes on a ways. You know what? I'll just repost it. If you want to catch the rest of it, I'll have it reposted. Direct link to my profile in the description. If you click on that link, it'll take you right to this, so you could read the rest of that for yourself. I'm getting pretty limited on time. I try to keep these under 2 hours, and I've got still at least a few more things to get to. So I honestly didn't even plan on reading that. It was just too interesting to pass up. But I think we got most of it. We got the gist of it. The Chicago Bears. What are they going to call them? The Indiana Bears? The Hammond Bears? Or maybe just the Bears? The Bears! And moving on to Speaker Mike Johnson, 199 Democrats voted against a clean 3-week extension of the FISA national security law for political purposes. When the bill went down, they applauded. They are willing to jeopardize the safety and security of the American people to make a cheap political point. I pray that we do not have a serious calamity on our shores. And I mean, look, I think a lot of Republicans are against this as well, not just the Democrats, but this got community noted. Readers added context they thought people might want to know. 19 Republicans also joined 199 Democrats in voting against the short-term FISA extension. The measure needed 2/3 approval, but received 198 votes. Some opposed it because it did not include a requirement for warrants when querying data of U.S. citizens. And I think people who pay attention that closely to politics and bills and existing legislation and laws, I believe that they've pointed that out too, that this whole FISA thing allows them to, dig into private information of Americans without warrants. At least that's what I've heard. But we've got this video from Speaker Mike Johnson, so I guess we'll hear his take.
Well, I don't know if the American people just saw what happened on the floor, but it is shameful and it is very, very dangerous. Let me just tell you what's happened here. Today, we just offered a simple, clean 3-week extension of the FISA national security law. The Democrats, 199 of them, voted against a clean 3-week extension for political purposes, and when the bill went down, they applauded.
And again, by the way, the Democrats initially voted against this because that was their way of posturing against Trump's pick for ODNI, which we just found out today that he changed the person who he nominated to be the director of national intelligence. So for them to, I don't know, are they going to go back on this? Are they going to go back into session tomorrow and vote differently? Are they going to pass it because he got rid of the original guy that he wanted to be the DNI director? I don't know, but I somehow doubt it. I'm sure they're going to stick with this.
That record and that video is going to live in infamy. I pray that we do not have a serious calamity on our shores over the next few weeks. We have done everything we possibly can. House Republicans are trying to govern. We're trying to keep the American people safe. On April 29th, we passed a 3-year extension of the FISA national security law. It has been sitting over in the Senate, and because the Democrats in the Senate are playing political games as well, they're unable to pass it. So we did everything within our power to try to ensure that this statute does not expire, and the Democrats are using it as a political hostage. Now, this is their custom in the 119th Congress. This is what Democrats do right now. You will remember that earlier this year, they took the Department of Homeland Security, 2 of its most important agencies, and turned those into hostages. They shut down the government. They shut down TSA agents and border security and cybersecurity capabilities and the Coast Guard. Why?
Yeah.
Because they were insistent that we no longer secure the national border. They wanted to give $0 to that.
Dude, it got so bad for the Coast Guard that they were having their utilities shut off on certain bases. That was literally happening. It was reported, and I talked about it here on the Swamp, and we read through all the proof that they were having their electrical utilities shut off because they had no money to pay those bills. So, of course, they were able to get extensions, like some emergency funding was able to get moved around or whatever, but that's how bad it was getting for the Coast Guard.
And they were insistent that we do not continue to remove criminal, illegal aliens from American communities to keep the American people safe. That is what the current Democrat Party stands for in Washington. They are willing to jeopardize the safety and the security of the American people to make a cheap political point. Now, Hakeem Jeffries is a Democrat leader in the House. They put out a statement this morning saying that what is their reason? What is their excuse for this? Their excuse is that they're upset about a very temporary appointment that the President of the United States has already said would be very temporary in nature.
He's already changed his mind, too.
Searches for and selects a new director of national intelligence. That is an important process that takes some time and thought and deliberation, and the President of the United States has the right, the ability, the responsibility, the duty to do that well. He has a lot going on right now, as we all know, and the President is deliberate about that. I spoke with him less than an hour ago about it. He is very close to a decision, and the Democrats know that. But they see this as a political moment that they can somehow score political points. It is detestable. It is dangerous. It is going to jeopardize the safety and security of the American people. We all know what's going on around the country right now. We're hosting the World Cup, FIFA. We have big soccer matches all around the country, 11 cities around America.
They said like 7 million people are showing
Freedom
up.
250 events going on
Foreigners.
here in the Capitol and all around the country. There are large sporting events, local communities. Those things are in jeopardy right now because the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act is exactly what the name implies. It is how we monitor terrorists who are plotting and planning dangerous events in the country, in our homeland. The reason we have not had a mass casualty event like 9/11 since that great tragedy is because we have this statute. And today, the Democrats in the House just voted it down. 199 of them voted
Republicans
against
did
it.
too,
and they applauded.
to be fair.
They applauded when the statute went down. I think that speaks for itself.
Well, yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all. They're probably standing on top of their desks and, partying and just like ripping off their shirts and twirling it around. God knows what the Democrats are really doing. What about the Patriot Act? Is the FISA part of that? It's probably part of that. I don't know. I'm just thinking like way back in the day, like after 9/11 happened, they passed like the Patriot Act that was basically, from what I understand, it sounds like relatively the same thing, which I'm sure it's not the same thing, but I'm sure that there's got to be other tools that the government has at their disposal when it comes to investigating and surveilling potential terrorists and things of that nature. It's just probably not going to be as easy as using FISA in order to get all that done. They may have to jump through a few extra hoops or something. But, I honestly don't really believe that they have, like, this completely kneecaps them, that they have no ability at all to combat any terrorism inside the country in any way, shape, or form over the next month because this whole FISA extension didn't occur. I don't know. But either way, hopefully nothing does happen catastrophically. Although, that would certainly give Republicans plenty of ammunition to fire at Democrats and put blame on them for it because they refused to pass this. All right, so rapid response 47. Secretary Rollins with agriculture on efforts to combat and eradicate the New World screwworm. We have moved the testing from Iowa to our brand new facility in Texas. The upcoming Edinburgh, Texas facility will give us about 300 to 400 million sterile flies, which back in the 1960s, when this whole New World screwworm was getting out of hand the last time, they were able to produce about 100 million sterile flies, and they released them, and that was able to eradicate the New World screwworm. Although the 100 million may have been weekly. It may have been like 100 million a week or something like that. But they kept throwing out the number 100 million in order to eradicate them, like back in the mid-20th century. We opened a new dispersal facility that allows us to better disperse the flies that are currently being born in Panama. So this is how they're going to eradicate them. And like I said, it worked during the mid-20th century. It worked. It was highly effective, producing these sterile flies and just releasing them out into the wild. And they did their thing. I'm just assuming they bred them out of existence. So let's see what the movement is now.
We continue to note that our food supply
is completely safe. There's no compromising of that. Our great American beef, this is an issue. It is a pest that we will continue to treat as we're eradicating and moving back south and ultimately eradicating forever under all of the things that we have deployed. But as I mentioned earlier this week, we have moved the actual testing from Iowa down to our brand new facility in Kerrville. We actually just opened up about a month ago. So very, very important to have the best scientists, best researchers, best technicians on the field, and really grateful for that. Grateful for our partnership with the governor, with our state of Texas, with Texas A&M and AgriLife, and of course all of our partners across the federal government, whether it is the War Department, Secretary Pete Hegseth, prioritizing, putting at the very top of his list in the Army Corps of Engineers, the Edinburgh facility, which once it comes online will give us about 300 million to 400 million sterile flies. Also at that Edinburgh facility, we haven't talked about this much, but in February we opened a new dispersal facility, 4 months ago, that allows us to move the flies that are currently being created in Panama or born in Panama up to this dispersal facility, which has allowed us to better disperse these flies in preparation for the news that we got last Wednesday. As we mentioned in response to this first detection in Texas, it's why we're here today. We have released 4 million flies on the ground, but also 4 million from the air. And other than that initial second detection, which was about 5 miles away, we've had no other detections in this area. So again, it doesn't mean there won't be more, but this technology works, and it works well, and it is proven over and over again.
Yeah, it's old technology, and it, like she said, it worked. It worked during the 60s. They were able to eradicate them last time, and that's how they got the job done. Moving on to U.S. Department of Energy. The Energy Undersecretary on how the United States and the Western Hemisphere will power the future. Venezuela at 300 billion barrels of oil. And also Alaska with a pipeline that has 1.5 million barrels per day of spare capacity. We're going to see the Western Hemisphere build its production capabilities.
Venezuela, right? 300 billion barrels. That's 6 times more proven reserves than the United States. 6 times more
6 times as much. Damn.
They're producing 1/10 the production. There's
the most oil on the planet.
Opportunity, to Mike's point, in the Western Hemisphere. We can control our own destiny. And Alaska, we've seen record lease sales. It's one of the few places in the world that has world-class resource in the ground with a pipeline that has 1.5 million barrels per day of spare capacity with an 8-day shipping route to Japan. We are going to see the Western Hemisphere build its oil production capabilities. We're going to see it shift back. We've already seen it start shifting back to the Western Hemisphere. And to Mike's point, we've got tremendous resource through South America, through the United States. You know, a term that Secretary Rubio made a few weeks ago when he was filling in at the White House briefing was, we're a nation of perpetual improvement. And I think it describes our industry perfectly. Right? We've seen it over and over again. Low recovery rates, we try something else, water floods or enhanced oil recovery, and we increase the recovery. And we're entering that age for shale, right? The shale that we've talked about that transformed not only domestic energy markets, but global energy markets, is only recovering 10% of the oil in place. We have 90% of the oil in the ground that our horizontal wells drill through and hydraulically stimulate. 90% is still in the ground. There's no way that our industry is going to give up with 90% in the ground. So imagine doubling that from 10% to 20% recovery rate. Still leaving 80% in the ground, but we would repeat the shale revolution. So there's going to be a perpetual improvement opportunity in the existing oil and gas industry to continue to provide the energy that the world needs.
Well, okay, man. That sounds like good news. I guess that's one way to get our gas prices down. If that does indeed get our gas prices down, let's hope it does. All right, and I'm going to finish off with NASA introducing Artemis 3, because we just had Artemis 2 that went around the moon and returned. It was about an 11-day journey, and we are now getting into the Artemis 3 era. 4 astronauts, 3 launches, 2 dockings, 1 splashdown. In 2027, the Artemis 3 mission will practice docking the Orion spacecraft with 2 lunar landers in low Earth orbit, the capability we need to return humanity to the moon's surface. So just like they were doing with the Apollo missions, they had to test all the docking and everything up in space to make sure everything worked right, because they don't want to send them off to the moon if they can't dock right once they get there, because that would be a catastrophe. So let's take a look at this video. Finish things off. Look like Starship. Oh yeah, we're going. We're not only going, we're going to the moon. We're going to be landing on the moon. And it won't happen in 2027. We're going to land on the moon in 2028 once we get Artemis 3 out of the way and move on to Artemis 4. So anyway, that's going to do it for this episode. If you enjoyed the video, please give a quick like and subscribe. And I'll be back with another episode tomorrow night as we do the Swamp Monday through Friday. And I post daily on X, which is where you can peek at some of the content for the next episode. And don't forget the video clips from tonight will begin dropping on the channel tomorrow at 8 a.m. Eastern. Thank you very much for watching. God bless the troops and God bless America.